Hey everybody, Danielle Hargenrader here. Welcome to another episode of Unleash Your Inner Diabetes Dominator. Today I'm really excited to have an awesome guest as usual. I'm going to read you her bio and we're going to get right into the story. So, Anna Norton has been living with type 1 diabetes since 1993. As the CEO of DiabetesSisters, she is dedicated to improving the lives of women living with diabetes through peer support and education. DiabetesSisters creates a safe environment for women living with diabetes through online and in-person programs such as online forums, blogs, webinars, national conferences, and monthly support group meetups throughout the United States. Anna graduated with a Bachelor of Science from the University of Florida and a Master of Science in Education at Florida International University. She has worked for large university systems and metropolitan healthcare systems since 1999 with a focus on major gift fundraising, annual gift, event planning, and community relations. She resides in the Chicago area with her husband and son. Anna, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good, Danielle. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, and I'm sorry, my cat was like running back and forth in between my intro to you. She was trying to steal your spotlight, so I apologize for that. But please share with us, as I always ask everybody, what was your story of diagnosis like, and kind of whatever you'd like to fill in from that time until now, the path that you traveled to get from where you were then to where you are now.
So you mentioned that I was diagnosed with diabetes in 1993. I was 18 years old, and I was diagnosed the summer between my senior year of high school and my freshman year of college. So, not the best. There's never a good time to be diagnosed with diabetes, but this was really not a good time to be diagnosed with diabetes. I was diagnosed 2 weeks before I was supposed to report, and I was going to college away from home. So I spent about a week in the intensive care unit because I had DKA. My blood sugar was over 1,200.
Wow.
And my parents and I, we had no idea, diabetes was. There was no type 1 diabetes in our family. We were very unfamiliar with it. We didn't know what the symptoms were. Although probably for the month or two leading up to my diagnosis, I had every symptom that you can possibly imagine with diabetes. So I did have excessive thirst, the frequent urination, the blurry vision loss. I had it all. It was summer. It was hot. I worked at a summer camp. So, every had a justification of something else. Well, I'm drinking a lot because I'm very hot. I'm going to the bathroom a lot because I'm drinking a lot. I've lost weight because I'm very active. All of these different things. Diagnosis was a scary one, but I was a sort of an overachiever student, and so I convinced everyone. The doctors said, you should go away to school, so I did. My first year was very good. I did a lot of research about healthy eating and keeping active. I always had a lot of fear in the back of my mind because that's sort of what I was trained with, fear. If you don't take care of yourself, this is going to happen. Right. If you don't take care of yourself, that's going to happen. One of the most impressionable things that I heard when I was diagnosed still in the hospital was that I wouldn't be able to have any children because of diabetes, because it would be such a terrible burden on my body. Carry all of those things, and I was young. So the first year I was good. I kind of did diabetes by the book, wonderful A1Cs. No one explained to me that I was honeymooning.
Yeah.
But, in retrospect, I probably was, which is helpful, those first couple of years. But, the second year I really wanted to be more of a college student. I lived on campus. I wanted to go out. I wanted to be up. 2 o'clock in the morning pizza runs and all kinds of things like that, and staying night to study. So I wanted to be a part of that, and diabetes just really didn't fit into that picture.
I could see that.
So I was still medicating correctly. I was still compliant. I was still seeing the doctor, but I just wasn't really feeling diabetes. There was a lot of other things that I wanted to do, and I wound up spending another maybe 5 years sort of doing my own. By the time I graduated from undergraduate and went into my master's program, I was extremely non-compliant. Still reading things. I was reading diabetes forecasts, so I thought that I was very educated. And I remember when Humalog came out, I begged my endocrinologist to put me on Humalog because at the time I was on NP. I was on a regular, you know. And so, you know, I thought that I was ahead of the times, you know. But, you know, my control was terrible. My A1C was probably at that point in the double digits. You know, I was doing everything, but I just wasn't really living. I was sick all the time, and that was my normal.
Right.
Were high all the time, and it felt completely normal. You know, pictures now, and I'm like, oh gosh, I was so sick.
Right.
But I looked great. I thought I looked wonderful. So sick, like my face was so sullen and everything. And I'm in DK again, 7 years after my diagnosis. You know, in the emergency room, transferred to another, you know, care unit. And I had a new endocrinologist come see me and say to me, oh, I'm under your case. You know, why are you here? And I was like, well, what do you mean, why am I here? You know why I'm here. Like, look at my chart. You know, and he said to me, you know, you're 25 old. You know, what do you do? He had a very, very good bedside man, something that I had not experienced to that point in my diabetes career.
And makes such a huge difference in our ability to actually listen and hear what a doctor has to say. That bedside manner.
Like, you know, he said to me, like, what do you do? Where do you work? Like, you know, and he just had this really great way of communicating with me. And then I said, yeah, you know, I work, and, you know, I graduated from, you know, master's program recently, and, you know, here I am. And he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, what do you mean what do I want to do? I'm stunted. I have diabetes. Like, I can't do anything. I can't do much more than what I'm doing. I understand why you're saying that. Like, what do you want? A career, and I want to get married, and I want to have a child, and, you know, all of these different things. And he said, well, like, what's stopping you? You can do all of these things. You're, right. You know, you're young, you're smart, and he said, and aside from the diabetes, you're a very healthy person. So, and I was like, I don't know, what are we going to do? You know, I was still kind of, you know, I was still being you know, somewhat defiant with him. You know, I was angry. And so he said, you know, this is what's going to happen. You know, we're going to stabilize your blood sugar, and you're going to be released, and you to do what you've been doing, you know, which is not great. You know, you can comply with, like, your insulin, your diabetes treatment plan, you know, was, you know, multiple shots daily. He said, or, like, you can come visit me in my office, and I'm going to show you what an insulin pump is. It's going to make your life easier. I was like, oh, he's like, and then he told me, I'll tell you, if you choose the first thing, which is to continue down the road that you're going, he said to me, you're going to die. First time, you know, anyone, like, sort of said that to me, and he said, you're going to die, and it's not going to be overnight, and it's going to hurt. It's going to be really painful, and it's going to take a long, long time. And he said, and I want you to think about that because you're very young, you know, and he kept saying that to me. Like, you're very young and you're very smart. You're very young and you're very smart. And then I said to him, all right, look, I'll come see you, you know. And so, you know, I was released, whatever, a couple of days later, and I went to see him in his office. Me a pump. I had read about them. I had learned about them, but I had never seen a pump. I'd never held one.
Right.
And you know, what is it, like, people that don't do things is usually because of fear, right, because they don't know. Mm-hmm. And when he showed it to me, I was like, this is all it is. Like, I have been afraid of this thing for the last, you know, 6 or 7 years since I learned about them. Like, how does it work? And he said, you know, funny you should ask that because I already have the paperwork all here for you. So fill out the paperwork, and, like, my office is going to work with your insurance company, and we're going to take care of this. And next time I see you, you're going to have it. Like, slow down. And he was like, no, I already, like, he's like, he said to me, who's young like you, and she wears a pump, and she's going to meet up with you tomorrow and show you how, like, it attaches and how it works. And I really want you to meet her, you know, really be encouraging and show you. And that's exactly what happened. And then I had the pump in hand less than a month later, and, you know, worried the whole time, like, come on. And he didn't train me. He didn't send a CDE to train me. And the same young girl, you know, and she kind of pulled out, like, a little, like, Post-it note, and she had all my basal rate. my insulin sensitivity and all of these things. I guess for all of this information.
Yeah.
So my empowerment was like that, and that endocrinologist who said to me, like, last year, you're young and you're smart, and you're young and you're smart. And I think what he was saying to me was like, you're smart enough to figure this out.
Yeah.
Figure out how to live a really, really good life with diabetes, and you're young enough that you're going to have a great life. And I'm really forever grateful to that, because he really showed me how to empower myself.
Yeah.
The questions I needed to ask to like figure out. One of the things I did say to him was, I don't know if I want to wear a pump because I like to wear dresses. And he said, and I said, so where am I going to put it? Where? And he was like, you'll figure it out. You'll figure this out.
Right.
See him after I got my pump. I wore a dress.
Nice.
He said to me, where's the pump? Like, is it in your bag or something? Like, I thought I'd sent my other patient to help you. And I said, no, I'm wearing it. And he said, but you're wearing a dress. And he kind of smiled, I said, well, you told me to figure it out, and I figured it out.
Yeah. I mean, hearing this story, it's just, the first thing I'm thinking is, this doctor is, I mean, it would be amazing if all doctors were as empowering as this doctor. I mean, so not only did he give you kind of this feedback that is super helpful, meaning you can figure it out. No matter what happens, you have the ability to figure it out. Not only do I know it, but saying that to someone else, believing in their ability, can sometimes just be the biggest difference maker in the world. So just having him say that, I mean, kudos to this guy. But the other thing is, he kind of, just hearing you talk about it, set you up almost like for your first Diabetes Sisters experience by this woman or young woman that came in and helped you set up your pump. Like, she was I don't know if you had met anyone with diabetes before then or not, or right, but that was like almost like your first experience. Have any
relationships. Yeah, I had no relationships with anyone that was living that was walking my path, that was on my journey. I knew older people that had diabetes. My family had one family friend, and she had died of complications from diabetes, probably after like 40 years.
Right.
And she was a great role model, but she died years before my diagnosis. So I never had that diabetes connection with her.
Right. And not only did you not have the connection, but then you also have in your mind the thought of, oh, she died because of diabetes complications, which is also not the most helpful idea to hold in your mind for anyone. But I mean, I think what you said is so meaningful to me personally, just because for me, kind of like you, we talked off air just about kind of being a bookworm and like kind of a nerd in school. Like, I was always a straight A student. I was very introverted back when I was in school, and I did know that I was smart. That was one thing that I did know about myself. So one of the things I say to myself when embarking on anything, especially if it's something I've never done before, because there's many things that I do often that are things I've never done before, because I believe strongly in growing outside of your comfort zone. But I say this to myself, it's like a mantra. It's like, I believe in my ability to figure things out. Even like, and I say that a lot when I'm in a situation where I feel completely lost, where I'm just like, I have no idea what I'm going to do next. But then I'll be like, okay, I believe in my ability to figure things out. And just saying that sounds like that doctor really kind of knew that mindset is very helpful to have, especially when you're living with diabetes. Yeah. So that's awesome.
And later on, I saw him for probably a year, and then I moved away, and it was really tough to leave him, Yeah. And I remember saying to him, like, I don't want to leave you. And he said, you don't need me. And I was like, but you helped me. He said, no, you helped yourself. And then I was able to find other physicians that had that same care, but then I knew what to look for. So again, he really opened up those gates for me to empowerment as my own, as a patient for myself, right. And then it was years later, probably 10 years later, that, I was living, and thriving with diabetes. It was good. Things were good. A1Cs were great. I felt wonderful. I got married. And then I had a baby,
Right.
and I had no diabetes complications throughout. I had a great endocrinologist. I had a wonderful perinatologist. I had this really great care, and I felt good. But I was still missing something. I really was.
Yeah.
And it definitely was having a peer support network.
Yeah.
I had my husband. My husband is wonderful. He's great. He doesn't have diabetes. He's chosen to live with diabetes, to be married to it. The pregnancy was a really great bonding time for he and I, as far as a couple, but as a couple living with diabetes and chronic illness. But he always says, I don't need to wear a pump to understand what you go through. I don't need to check my blood sugar to know what you go through. I don't need to wear CGM to know what you go through, because I watch you, I live it with you.
Yeah.
But there's still something missing there, because he doesn't know what it feels like to have a low blood sugar.
Sure.
And he doesn't physically know what it feels like to have a high blood sugar, or to be so frustrated with diabetes that you want to just like throw whatever you have in your hand across the room, or even to be so thrilled with, a blood test result, that you can't contain yourself. That He does not get, because he can't feel that, right? So it wasn't until 2010. I was living in North Carolina, I'm sorry. And at the end, my endocrinologist's office, there was an advertisement for a DiabetesSisters Weekend for Women conference.
Wow. And that's the thing I was just going to ask you. I'm like, what, how did you foray into the DiabetesSisters kind of peer support? Because I know people out there who listen to me or follow anything I do know that I'm like a massive advocate for peer-to-peer support. My whole summit last year was called the Peer Diabetes Mentoring Summit, because of the way that peer support has not only changed my life, but just every person that I talk to that has involved themselves in some way in peer-to-peer support cannot stop talking about how much of a massive change it has made. And I have the same experiences as you, in that I do have, and I'm so grateful to have a husband that is like 100% supports me, 100%, is there with me through no matter what happens. But at the same time, like you said, there are just some things that our caregivers, our loved ones, so to speak, can't understand, and we don't want them to understand it, but at the same time we do want someone who does. So talk to me about, so you saw the advertisement in the doctor's office.
So again, I brought home this little, it was like a bookmark, I wish I still had it. I don't have it, but it was like a little bookmark, and it just said like Weekend for Women in Raleigh, North Carolina, something or other. So I brought it home and I showed it to my husband, and I was like, look, what do you think of this? And he was like, I don't know. What do you think? And I'm like, I'm going to look it up. They're having a conference. Should I go? No, I'm not going to go. I don't know anybody. We had just moved to the state and everything. And he said, listen, go. What's the worst that can happen? You don't fit in. You're not enjoying it. Just
come home.
Yeah, just get in the car and come home. We live 5 minutes away from the convention center. So just go. So I did, and I didn't stay over. You could stay over, but I didn't, because I wanted an out in case I needed it. And, I sat down, and the first thing, I sat down on one of those like round tops, in the room, and someone sat down next to me, and then there was someone sitting across the table, someone was checking their blood sugar and like licking their finger. And I was like, this is wonderful. Like there's no nobody's following the rules. Like, this is great. Like, this is real. That's what I thought. This is real. Like, she didn't like rub alcohol on her finger before she like pricked it. No. She like licked her finger. Like, this is real. This is, it validated. Yeah. It validated me. And then someone sat down next to me, and she said, like, do you know anybody? I said, no, I don't know anybody. She said, me neither. And then I asked her, like, why are you here? And she said, I want to have a baby, and I want to learn from like other women that have had babies. And she said, like, do you have a baby? And I said, yeah, actually I do. My son is, I think he was 2 at the time. And she said, how did you do it? And I said, I was like, I did it. I just did it. I did exactly, what I needed to do, and I prepared my body for it. And, I had a great pregnancy. And she's like, really? Like, and I could see it, like, in her mind, like, that something that I had done was inspiring her. And I said to her, listen, if I could do it, anybody could do it. And she said, don't minimalize it. It's not that easy. and she's right. It wasn't that easy.
No.
It just seems easy now. But I realized then that like I could learn from these women could learn from me, like we could all learn from each other. And I was so disappointed on Sunday afternoon when I had to go home that the next year, I said to my husband, next year I'm going and I'm getting a room and I'm staying there the whole time because like, I don't ever want to like say goodbye to this group,
But obviously, just going there wasn't your end point, so to speak. Like you were, oh, I'm sorry, I'm hearing a little bit of echo. Sorry for people if you're hearing that. But what happened in between, I guess, the first time you went to the conference and then I guess you went the next year, but now you were the CEO of DiabetesSisters. So obviously there was like a little bit more involved than just going to a conference here and there. So like
the conference was extremely eye-opening for me because it provided this really great balance of experts in diabetes to talk about different areas of diabetes. So Gary Shiner was there, and I knew a little bit about Gary. I wasn't very involved online, but I knew a little bit about him. And he was just talking about, at the time he was talking about pregnancy, and I was thinking maybe I would have another baby. So I thought I'd go in and listen on his session. And I was just blown away by his charts and, his conversation. And then I learned like that he lived with diabetes too. So that's even more inspiring. There was another physician, her name is Diana McNeil. And we were talking a lot about achieving like, in-range A1C, in-range blood sugars. And, I remember just listening to her. And then after talking to her and saying to her, my A1C is just, it's almost where I want it, and I was wearing a CGM at the time. It was it was new for me. So
wow, yeah, 2010.
Yes, and I said, so I'm at the CGM now, and she said to me, what's a really great thing? And I said, what? And she said, just lower your high alert a little bit. She said, just lower it 10 points. And I was like, what? Like it blew my mind. I had not thought of that. Why did I not think of that? She said, like, why did the trainer set your high to like 200?
Yeah.
You're chasing at 200. She's like, lower it. So then I went home, I lowered it, and so those educational pieces were really great. But then there was all this peer support. There was all of these raw, candid conversations about real life with diabetes, real life. Not I wake up in the morning and my fasting blood sugar is 98 and then I have breakfast and then 2 hours later my blood sugar is 132. It wasn't that. It was I sleep with like a can of Coke next to my bedside.
Yeah, of course.
My pump gets in the way when I have sex.
Yep.
My blood sugars are erratic the week before my period. Like it was all of these different things, but it all validated so many of my own experiences.
Yeah, and I mean, just for me, just to like interject about the CGM thing, is that was a huge game changer for me. A, getting a CGM, which I've only had for about 4 years now, but B, was the high alert line. So I wasn't comfortable with it being at 200 on my own. I didn't really have training either, but I started lowering it slowly on my own. But what I realized in the process is that you can't go too much too fast because you're going to have what I call diabetes information overload and your alarms are going to be going off. Which also is something that I do now is I'll toggle back and forth. Like my high, I went from 200 to 90 to 80, and now mine's set at 130 because this took a long time to get. It's not like I was just like, oh, hey, I'm at 130. Like, no. And that's why I kind of want people to know that just like anything with diabetes, it's like, it's a journey, it's a process. Like you don't want to jump all the way from 200 to 130 because you're going to drive yourself absolutely insane. But on the other hand, it's a really great, like Dr. Ponder is like, you're only as good as the tool that you use is only as good as the user itself. So if we're not using the tools that we have to the best of our advantage, they're only going to work as good as we do. So I think that's a really important point just for anybody who's out there who's thinking about it. It's like, maybe just bring it down 10 milligrams per deciliter and see what happens, because it can make a huge difference and also make you feel more empowered. So I think that's awesome.
Yes. And then, but like that really helped me to understand the balance between, the social support and then the educational support, and so something that I really wanted to be a part of, I'm a trainer by, by education, an event planner. So I reached out to Brandy Barnes, who was the founder of Diabetes Sisters, and she was the CEO at the time. And I said to her, I'm kind of new to town, but I would really like to get involved. And I have this, background in event planning and some fundraising, and she was like, sure, come on, so the following year I helped to plan, and bring a great agenda to the conference. And then maybe, I don't know, a year after that, Diabetes Sisters received some funding to grow the infrastructure of the organization. And Brandy asked if I would come on board to actually run the conferences.
That's amazing.
Yeah, which was great. And so, I really didn't have to think twice about that. I was already very, invested in the organization. It was something that, I really wanted to share with more people because it had done so much for me.
Yeah.
As a person who was already empowered, who didn't think I didn't think I needed anything, right? And but then to learn and then to be able to disperse that information to other people, it became very important to me. And then I picked up, the conference series, our PODS meetup program, which are support meetups that meet all over the country. So I was kind of overseeing that stuff, the website design, different things with the organization. And Brandy and I really grew. We continued to grow the organization and started doing bi-coastal conferences, leadership institutes for like our key volunteers. Expansion of our website and our newsletter, and just started doing lots of fun things, and we were having a good time. And then, Brandy decided a couple of years ago that the organization, was experiencing some changes, not bad changes, but it had grown to where she wanted to see it and that it was sustainable. And so she decided that she was going to step away from the organization that she had founded. It had been 7 years that she had been in the role. And so the board of directors asked me to step in for the interim, and a couple of months later, they asked me to stay on permanently. And I was just thinking, I was looking at my calendar, so it's been 2 years on May 1st that I've been in my role as CEO of Diabetes.
Well, happy anniversary. That's exciting. Well, for people watching now, this is pre-recorded, so today is actually May 2nd. This is not going to air for maybe another couple weeks or so, but happy anniversary.
Thank you. Yes, it was yesterday, right? Yesterday's May 1st. Yeah, and it kind of went by without any fanfare, but I was looking at something on Time Hop, and it popped up, and I was like, oh, wow. But it doesn't feel like 2 years. It feels like just yesterday that I have been in this role, yet so many things have happened.
Right. And that's how you're kind of like where you want to be, because the things that you're so passionate about doing, seems like time just flies by and you're like, what? But then you actually take the time to sit down and list out or take a look at all the things that were accomplished. So I think that's a really good indicator that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And in that light, I kind of want to mention, like, I'm really excited. I'm going to be attending my first ever Diabetes Sisters Weekend for Women conference coming up in October, of 2017. So I want to talk a little bit about that, which will be in Washington, D.C. I'm going to drive down. I'm in Philadelphia, but for people out there who are watching this, who are thinking about maybe being their first time going to a conference, which I would say, my first conference was the Diabetes Unconference, which you're also very involved in, which was an awesome, I would say, introductory conference to peer support. So you guys are kind of teaming up, so to speak. So maybe talk just a little bit about that, and I will, as always, guys, the link to get to this and everything else that we talk about will be directly below the video. So don't worry about that, but talk a little bit about that and what we can look forward to and all that kind of stuff, because I'm excited.
So Diabetes Sisters has taken a 2-year hiatus from our Weekend for Women conferences. Our last one was in, when was it? It was in Los Angeles in 2014. And then we just took a break from doing them and we started doing some other conferences. We have been doing a leadership institute, and it's for a smaller group of women. It's women that are our key volunteers. They're the women that lead the support groups all over the country. So we bring them in once a year. We do more training, more education, and then those women can go out and reach their communities, women in their communities with diabetes. But Christelle Marchand-Prigliano and I, Christelle, who runs the Diabetes Unconference, we started chatting one day about what the Unconference does and what Weekend for Women does. And we just started talking about, how could we maximize the things that we do, and affect more people, and reach more people living with diabetes. And we said, let's do a joint conference.
Great idea.
And so, we have both been a part of the diabetes community for some time now. And we have both seen the power of peer support and how it works, and how it changes people's lives and how it empowers, people to live a better life with diabetes, whether it's on a very small level or on an enormous level. And we've also seen how educational sessions can really help, people, again, with that validation, right? So, I lowered the threshold on my CGM, and then to have a physician say, you should lower the threshold on your CGM, and you might get a better control of, your A1C, things like that. So we put our heads together and we came up with this, joint conference. Again, it's October 13th through the 15th, right outside of Washington, D.C. We have a couple of components that are a part of it. So anybody that's out there watching this, if you are a man, you're more than welcome to attend, because we do have 4 different tracks that we're going to be offering to those that register. The first one is a Weekend for Women track. So that is solely for women, and it's going to address concerns that women have. So we'll have a session on pregnancy, a session on anxiety and distress. Another session is just about empowerment, being the CEO as a woman, being your own CEO. We have a session about parenthood, for motherhood, so managing motherhood with all of the other things that women have. Then we have a general education track, which covers other things, other issues as they relate to diabetes. So we have a session on nutrition, another one about the physiology of exercise and how it relates to diabetes. Another one is on heart health. We have a session on technology. So what's the newest thing out there? What's out there as far as, faster insulins or pumps or meters or CGMs, things like that. And that track is actually open to both men and women.
Awesome.
So as long as you're living with diabetes, and it doesn't matter what type. So we didn't say that before, but both conferences will accept people that live with any kind of diabetes, including pre-diabetes.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's so important. And I think it gets overlooked so much, is that people with pre-diabetes, people with type 2 diabetes, it's like the things that we all do to stay healthy, happy, to move forward, to be empowered, all of these things, there's no discrimination between type of diabetes for any of that stuff. So I think I'm thrilled that you guys are, of that mindset. I try to have that inclusive mindset every single thing I do. So I'm always happy to see other people with that too.
Important, because a lot of people get a pre-diabetes diagnosis and don't know what to do and don't know where to go. And so if we can provide even a diabetes 101,
absolutely,
start to engage the patients in those conversations, and that empowers them. It may prolong a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes.
Yes.
It may create, or motivation to do other things. So anything that we can do to help. The third track that we're offering is the unconference track, which I know, Danielle, you've talked about a lot and you're a big fan of it. And that's for people that live with diabetes, again, any kind of diabetes. And that's the untethered, completely peer networking. So it's peer support. The agenda is not created because it's created by those that register for it. So, it's whatever the attendees want to talk about. Track is a track for partners or people who love us. And that's going to include 2 different kinds of things. It's going to include some education, and it's going to include some of those unconference tracks. So we're going to have Gary Steiner do sort of a diabetes 101, how to manage highs, how to manage lows. He'll be teaching the attendees how to administer glucagon. A really great psychologist from Duke University coming to do a communication session. So that's open for people living with diabetes and their partner, their caregiver, a lot of that. And then there's that portion of that track that's that untethered unconference track. built by the attendees. What do they want to talk about? So 4 tracks, 4 different registration types. So there's a weekend for women registration. There's a weekend for women partner registration. There's an unconference registration, and then an unconference partner registration for those that may be a little confused. A little bit, right? Now, all of the social sessions and the meals are all held together. All the general sessions are held together. But there are specific areas. So if you register for Weekend for Women, you are privy to go to the Weekend for Women sessions. Right. If you register for unconference, you go to the unconference sessions. And if you don't like either of those 2 tracks, you're always welcome to come to that general education.
Yeah, I think, what you guys what you guys did was just covered it for everyone. Like, there's something for everyone there. Whether you have diabetes yourself or you love someone who does, I just think it's an amazing thing, and I'm really excited about it. I know a lot of my friends will be there, and I think that's the other thing that's super, for me, much like you, when I went to the unconference, I didn't really know anyone. I actually ended up rooming with somebody that I had met through an online interview. Like, I didn't actually know these people. Like, so I was kind of really feeling very like, well, I don't know anyone, and I was in Las Vegas, so I couldn't just like run home to Philadelphia. You know what I mean? I was kind of wishing I could, but at the same time, now that was a couple of years ago, and now I'm just like, it's like going back to see your friends. Like, you make friends there, and as people with diabetes know, once you meet someone else with diabetes, it's like, oh, we're definitely friends. Like, there's really just no, like, that takes like 5 seconds to become friends. So then I get to go back and see, people from other conferences or people, and I just think that that's something that you don't even go there necessarily with the intention of saying, I'm going to make lifelong friends. You're like, I'm going to learn, or I'm going to improve myself. And now all that stuff happens. But really what happens is you like make these lifelong friends that are just, it's mind blowing. So I'm very excited.
Or you go with one expectation. You go with one expectation, like, I'm going to learn everything that there is to know about glycemic index. And you wind up learning about, heart health.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So those are, so I just say that for anybody that's coming, we want everyone to feel welcomed. We want everyone to feel supported. We want everyone to want to come, and we want everyone to get whatever it is they need to get out of it.
Yep, absolutely.
And experience peer support, then they should have that, or if they want to come and learn about something specific as it relates to diabetes, then they should come and learn about that. If they want to come and listen to conversation about intimacy, then they should come and really, pour themselves into that and learn about that. If they want to come and learn about advocacy, pay close attention to those sessions. We really try to make it difficult to choose which track they wanted to be a part of. And what we have is that we have made it very difficult that they don't know what to choose. But that's the point. We want to make it so exciting for everyone. And we do want to see everyone there, but both Christelle and I can guarantee that there will be plenty of time for social networking, for peer networking, for sharing information, comparing diabetes, war stories, and from what I understand, we have already sold out of our Thursday night block.
Awesome.
So we have rooms available at the hotel rate, at the conference rate, still for Friday and Saturday, and then we're selling out of our Sunday. So people are coming early and they're leaving late. So if time to visit in October, we've done a conference there before. It's been wonderful. The weather's great. Alexandria is a fun place. It's right near the water. There's like a trolley that takes you to the water. The hotel that we are is right across the street from the metro station, which is 15 minutes from the mall in Washington, D.C. So it's great for sightseeing, environment, a great hotel staff. Both conference and the Weekend for Women are fabulous programs. They have affected thousands of people, and so I just everyone, if you've got the time and you want to participate, to please register as soon as possible. With Weekend for Women, we are about at half of our capacity as far as registrants go at this point. So don't wait. if this is something that you want to do, please, do it. It seems like it's a long way away. We were just talking, Danielle, about the summer months. The summer flies by, it goes by very, very quickly.
I think that's something that people kind of get caught up in, is that they're like, oh, well, it's May. So we're talking about October, and they kind of just like let it slip away. And I think that most of us know that from May to October, obviously we know how many months it is, in our mind, but in the reality of things, the summer always flies by no matter what. It's just, everybody kind of has that like easy breezy summer feel, things that fly by. Next thing you know, it's September. You're like, oh my goodness, I really wanted to go to that conference in October, and then it may be sold out or what have you. And it's like, I'm not a salesperson like by any means, but I'm going. I've already registered. I'm super excited about going. So I just, anybody who's out there who, is getting this in an email, or you're seeing this on YouTube or wherever I may have posted it, don't wait. I would love to see you there personally, but I also would love to see you find something amazing for yourself, for your health, for your happiness, because this is the kind of environment that fosters that kind of growth. So don't hold out, don't wait.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen women that come to Weekend for Women be, extremely involved, and others that have really taken the back seat, literally in the conference room, and just absorbed everything. So introvert and extrovert, everyone, there's something for everyone. And I can't stress that enough. But initially I'm very introverted and scared. And for me to go to that first one and not know anyone, and then walk out at the time that there was 100 women, and walk out with 99 new friends. That's really what I had. I had 99 were women because of the scope of the conference, but that I could text or call or email at any time to ask them anything, and they could do the same for me. It really just changed my entire outlook. Yeah. I wake up in the morning living with diabetes.
Awesome. I love it. So let's kind of bring this around full circle, and we'll talk about, although I think I might know what one of your answers might be, about what you feel, for Anna specifically, are your top 3 tips for living happy and healthy with diabetes.
So I think my first one is, you've got to live. Like, you really have to live. And I say that from experience, because I spent the first 7 years living. Yeah. I spent my first 7 years just petrified that, I was going to do something and I was going to screw it up and I was going to die. So once I realized that that wasn't the case, then I really started to live. And once I started to live, I really started to thrive. Yes. And I do anything and everything, because if I have the opportunity to do it, then I want to do it. I want to experience my life. Yes. That would be the first one. The second one is, if you have a diabetes question, you need to ask it. Yes. To anyone that has diabetes, because if you have that question, that means that someone else has that question. Or if you're experiencing something in your life with diabetes, someone else has experienced that too. And I always say that diabetes is lonely and is isolating. Ask that question, you'll realize that someone else is living the same thing. Yep. Your diabetes might be different, but you may have experienced that same exact thing. And, using those peer support networks, you can really, really, what might be happening in your diabetes life, and really, be able to get out of whatever funk you might be in when it comes to diabetes. Absolutely. My third tip is to also remember that we are not our diabetes. We are so much more than that, And Danielle, you said that you went to the unconference. It was the first year. That's when you and I met. So that was in 2015, and you met all these different people. And I would challenge you to ask the day you talk to one of those people, and how often does diabetes come up?
Oh, well, I would say that one of my best friends now in the world, who, like I said, we met there. I interviewed, her name is Dr. Jody Stanislaw, who some people might know just because she's out in the diabetes community as well. I interviewed her for a series just like this. I just sat down to interview her because I heard of her. I heard that she was a naturopathic doctor that had diabetes, that, was kind of thinking outside the box. And I was like, let me interview her. Never met the woman ever before. we ended up rooming together, sight unseen, other than, you know, on the internet. And then next thing I know, like since then, she's stayed at my house in Philadelphia twice. She lives in Idaho. I'm actually going out to Idaho to see her next month. And we spend days upon days together. I mean, and we definitely talk about diabetes here and there, but it's definitely by far not the topic of conversation most of the time.
So that's one of the tips that I would offer. So, you know, some of my greatest friendships have come from diabetes and now have really so small in comparison to everything else that we share.
Yeah.
I have friends in the diabetes that, again, not the fact that, you know, we have diabetes, we would have never met, but now we talk about our kids, you know, we talk about, you know, doing things, you know, we check in every day just to see like what's going on. We're sending jokes, you know, we're having deep, meaningful conversations because we're friends.
Yes.
You know, and that's really important, you know, and I live in Chicagoland and there's some people I met at unconference that I get to see on a regular basis together, and we have a meal, and yeah, we'll talk a little bit about diabetes, but we're talking about so many other things too. There's a beautiful community that can be created from those relationships. So that would be, I think, my third tip.
Yeah,
It helps
I love it.
to the isolation and loneliness.
Yeah, words of wisdom from Anna. I love it. It was all, I agree, experiential living. Talk about it, ask your questions, and know that the friends that you meet, you know, they'll be great friends, like just like any other friend that you have. It just so happens that you both have diabetes, and every once in a while you might have a low together, and that you can sit on the floor and commiserate with each other. And then really it's just part of it.
Yeah, and then I mean, there's sort of this unspoken understanding, right?
Yeah.
Like as part of the friendship. So,
Absolutely.
you know, and so if you are, you know, taking a hike, you know, then one understands the other.
Yep.
But that's so helpful. It's so wonderful.
Yeah, to not have to even say anything and just know that the other person understands what might happen or might not. But either way, like you said, it's an unspoken thing. So before we wrap up here, I always like to, you know, I never want to cut anyone off. Do you have anything else you want to add? You know, we talked about a lot of awesome stuff, but you have a lot of great things to say. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we kind of close it out here?
I wanted to thank you for having me on because I have followed you for some time. Like one of my favorite videos is the one of you putting on your CGM.
Oh,
I love that video.
Oh, awesome.
Because again, it was like almost like you were like in my bathroom doing it with me. But you know, I just appreciate, you know, you having me on and having a candid conversation and being a cheerleader for Diabetes Sisters, for peer support, you know, for our upcoming conferences, talking about it, you know, and sharing with your audiences the importance and the value of it. So thank you for what you do to the community.
All right, my pleasure. I appreciate the kind words, but for me, I just this is what I'm here to do. If anybody out there is doing anything that's adding value to the diabetes community, that's being in service to the greater good of humanity, as I kind of see it, I mean, I'm here to help spread the word in any way I can. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and for saying such kind things. And I look forward to seeing you again in person in October. And hopefully everybody out there that's watching, no matter whether you're a man or a woman, whether you have type 1, type 2, type 1.5, whether you're pre-diabetic, it doesn't matter. Check out the links below. I'm going to link to the registration page for the conference, also to the Diabetes Sisters actual site itself in case you want to look into a meetup in your area. So yeah, there's tons of opportunities out there for peer-to-peer support. It's really just, I always say to people, it's most likely not going to fall into your hands, but it's just at arm's length. You just have to reach out and grab it. So I hope that you guys will do that. And I appreciate everybody taking the time to watch us today and listen to us talk or wax poetic about living with diabetes. And we will catch everybody on the next episode of Unleash Your Inner Diabetes Dominator. Thanks so much, Anna.
Bye.